What is up, everyone? It's Thomas with RoBroker coming at you live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. going over the market stats, the news you need to know about, everything about buying, selling, or investing here in Northeastern Florida. And we're also doing a Q&A. So if you have any questions about the news stories I cover, the stats that we cover, anything that we're talking about here on the live stream, let me know in the comments below. Your engagement helps this live stream do better. So if you find some value, do me a solid, throw it a like, throw it a comment. But as we always like to do, I like to know where everyone's watching from. You're watching from Florida, you're watching from St. Augustine. Are you looking to move here? Maybe you're coming from New York or California or South Florida. Let me know in the comments below where you're looking from. We got a pretty good one today. At least I probably say that every time. But I feel like we got some good news stories here today. So I'm going to hop right into it. We always start with the market stats. I'm going to go to the news. And typically with the news, we do national, state, and then local. So we kind of boil it down. So we'll run through those real quick. Let's take a look at the market stats. All right. So this is for the overall Northeastern Florida area. So median sale price of $365,000, down 1.2% from this time last year. And it's funny, for years, even prior to 2022 and 2021, 2020, even 2019, 2018, every single year you heard that we were going to have a real estate crash. And I feel like the past 4 to 8 years, especially since the pandemic, have probably been some of the most tumultuous over like the last 30 years. And I've only been alive 34 years now. I just had my birthday. But it does feel like that it's been a little crazy these past couple years. And the real estate market has been relatively unaffected. And this is all of Northeastern Florida, down 1.2%. So if they're calling for a crash, and that's what they mean by a crash, then I guess it happened. But a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So eventually they will be right? We just got to figure out when that is. All right, same thing with St. Johns County. So once again, nothing major to report here, guys, unless, of course, maybe it's possible that there's some collusion, making up data so that the market looks healthier than it is. That's always possible. I'm definitely a conspiracy theorist, so that's always possible. I definitely don't disagree. But down 1.1% this time from last year. So once again, nothing. Okay, is that not ideal? We'd rather see that be up 1.1%. But at the end of the day, nothing that is meaningful in terms of like, oh hey, I think the market's going to go down, so I'm going to wait. And people have been saying that since 2012, really. Right when 2012 started to happen, people are like, you know what, I think the market's going to crash, even though we just had a really big crash just prior to that. Every single year, you heard that. And still the same thing goes on today. Now, do you have more fuel to the fire today because of how much prices have increased over the past couple of years? 100%. You do. You have a lot more ammo in that weapon stock. But once again, we're not seeing it. I'm not seeing it here in this area. If the market's going to crash, and I've been saying it for years, I wonder what is going to be the tipping point of that happening. And as we've seen, and this will lead us right into the next news story here, as we've seen people talk about mortgage rates, and Trump has been throwing spaghetti at the wall, just trying to see what's going to stick, probably because they have midterms coming up. They want to look really good, trying to fix the problem about housing, right? And let's be honest, the last administration didn't even talk about anything, right? When it came down to housing, wasn't brought up. But at least he's talking about it, and hopefully some of the things that he wants to do will come to fruition. One of the things that he's getting a lot of people talking about is banning institutional investors. That's only 1% of the real estate market, so really not going to do much, but it is a good promotion. And in reality, from what we're seeing, is people are calling and asking, hey, do you think this is going to make a big deal? Because they're interested. They want to do something. It's just that with everything that's gone on these past couple of years, it feels like a tough decision to make. So they hear something like this, they're like, oh man, finally it's going to be cheaper for me to buy a house. Well, if they're buying 1% of the homes, does it really matter? No, it's not going to do anything. Now he also talked about doing $200 billion because, back he had the great foresight to see back in his previous administration to not sell Fannie and Freddie Mac, or Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And now they have a $200 billion surplus of money that he wants to use to buy mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities, as of right now, the Fed owns about $2 trillion of mortgage-backed securities. So that $200 billion would make a dent, but not anything significant, right? So the math on it is essentially it would lower interest rates by 0.15%. So if you had a 6.2 interest rate, potentially goes down to 6.05, right? Save you about $40 a month. Now, I look at that and I'm like, that's not enough to move the needle on anything. But what it does get, what happens is people get talking about it and they say, oh, you know what, this is going to happen, so maybe I should get pre-approved and look at the numbers. And whether you like Trump or you hate Trump, at least he's talking about it. At least he's trying to put something together. But then again, they've been talking about the Epstein files, right? And that went from being a Democrat hoax to it's real and whatever, you know? So just look this way while we're doing something over here. Now, I'm not going to go too far in that conspiracy theory hole. That's not what this show is about. Let's go ahead and talk about the news story here. So that was what we were leading into. Trump's target. Oh my God, these freaking ads, the real deal. Unbelievable. Trump's target on corporate landlords could have a huge effect in Florida. Corporate investors now own up to 25% of single-family rental homes in the state. So this is also an interesting... Why is it showing that? That's not right. Okay, that's showing the wrong one. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not sure why it's doing it. This freaking software, man, is awful. But either way, essentially what they're saying is that, hey, this new potential investor ban, which may or may not happen, by the way, probably very likely that it doesn't happen, could affect Florida because most of the rentals here in Florida are owned by big institutional investors. Now, I imagine what they will do for ease is say, hey, if you already were an institutional investor, that's fine. You can continue to be an institutional investor. But from this point on, we're not allowing big companies to buy properties in mass, right? I imagine that's what it'll boil down to, because essentially you're just saying like, okay, so hey, you bought all these properties, you know, as part of an investment. It was totally legal for you to do. We're making it illegal now, so that's going to be a negative for you. I just don't see that going over very well, especially with all these people that have tons and tons of money to be able to buy all of these rentals. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right on that. I'd like to know what you guys think about that, because that's an interesting take. And like I said, I don't think it's going to make a meaningful difference in the housing market anyway. One thing, and double-edged sword of this is, let's say that he does ban institutional investors. Well, if they own a quarter of the rentals, does that mean that, like, let's say that they are making it illegal and that these guys can't own these properties at all anymore? Well, that means that you're going to flood the Florida real estate market with a lot more rentals because they need to sell them because they're not allowed to own them anymore. And then also, if you probably look around at the apartment complexes, many of the rentals that are being built all over Florida, but especially here in northeastern Florida, you can probably almost guarantee that they're owned by a large institutional investor. So if you're de-incentivizing people from building rentals, which at this point are affordable housing, what does that mean for the overall landscape of renting? It's a good question to ask. I don't know. Just asking questions here, guys. So let me know what you think in the comments below. We got one comment here from Luis Maldonado. Do you think houses are coming down this 2026? I think we're going to see a flat year. I don't think all the economists are saying that we're going to have an increase in transactions, which is going to be a positive because we've had kind of a lull of transactions for the past 3 years. But I don't think we're going to see a huge increase in pricing. And this is also location specific, right? So one of the news stories I'm going to be talking about here is our master plan communities and how well they're selling in comparison to the rest of the market. But there's certain neighborhoods that are going to do better. There's certain neighborhoods that are going to do worse. But in general, I don't see anything falling off of a cliff. So if you're waiting to buy, waiting for that perfect time, there's a good saying that's like trying to time the market doesn't beat time in the market, right? So if you're looking to buy as an investment, at the end of the day, you buy an investment for, let's say, $300,000 or $280,000. You're like, oh, I got $20,000 off. In the course of how long you own that property, like which the goal is long-term investments with those type of properties, it doesn't really matter, right? So if you in 10, 20 years, like, yeah, your mortgage rate might be, or your mortgage interest payment might be slightly different, but the difference of $20,000 over a 30-year mortgage is not significant. But the amount of growth and appreciation you have over 20, 30 years, the amount of rental income you have over 20, 30 years, that is significant. So, Lewis, I'm going to give you the little realtor answer. It depends. It highly depends on where you're looking at and what neighborhood. But I don't think I see any meaningful change. Got another comment here from Lewis, I have not decided yet buying in Rivertown or Shearwater. Both great communities. Both have, and that's really what you're buying in there is going to be a lifestyle, right? I actually have a video coming out on Rivertown, and we're going to talk about it here in just a bit because it's one of the top 3 master plan communities selling across the nation. That just was released recently. So we'll get into talking about that in just a second. So stay around for that. We got JJP904. Happy New Year. What do you know / have you heard about agrihood going into Clay County? I think that's a new development. They were trying to do an agrihood here in St. Johns County, but right now St. Johns County and the sentiment around it is very negative around any new construction. So that got shot down. It'll probably come back, right? Most of these developers, they'll table it for a second when there's because initially when they propose something, you get a lot of heat on it. They'll table it for maybe 6 months to a year. Maybe you get a little bit less heat on the next time, and then probably by the second or third time you're going around, you'll get it approved because people are tired of it. But I heard about it. I'm not sure if it got approved or not, but I can look into it and I'll make a note for next week if you want to stay on the live stream, or if you want to reach out to me directly, I can look into it. But I'll make a note here just so I can figure that out for next week. And we're going to go on to the next news story here. Appreciate you guys and your engagement. Let's go on to the next stuff, okay? All right. Mortgage refinance demand surges 40% higher after Trump post briefly tanks interest rates. I'm not even sure what post that was, but for the whole week, the average contract interest rate for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage conforming loan balance decreased to 6.18% from 6.25%. And many of those FHA, VA, you're definitely in the 5s right now, right? So this is just a conventional mortgage. FHA, VA is solidly in 5.7, 5.8 range. So what tweet did they say? Oh, this is where he's talking about buying $200 billion in mortgage-backed bonds. So that's, once again, like I was saying, it's getting people interested in it, right? Because there is pent-up demand, whether you think the market's crashing or not. People have been wanting to buy houses because they felt like they missed the boat because in 2021, 2022, we had record low interest rates. And then in a span of 6 months, it went from 3% to 7%. And then the people who were out shopping were like, oh man, I got to buy something now before interest rates go up even further. And then it hit 7% and people were like, man, it's so expensive. I don't know if I want to buy this house. I want to see what happens with the market because if interest rates shot up that fast, prices should go down that fast. And we just haven't seen that reaction, right? So the one thing I will say is that this gets the conversation going. This actually gets people saying, you know what, maybe I should go talk to that lender and see what my payment would be with me putting X amount down and this interest rate and see if that works for me, because I've been putting this off for a couple of years now because I was worried about what's happening with the housing market. And that's totally fair, right? That logic makes tons of sense, right? We had prices go up really high because we had such low interest rates, right? It was interest rates. I talked to someone the other day that had 1.75% interest rate. Inflation, like we've seen, is 3% year over year, right? So he's beating inflation. So he's doing so good on that. It doesn't make sense to sell it, right? But then you see people that are like, oh man, it's 7% now. I'm going to wait, right? I'm going to wait and see what happens. And probably because prices went up that fast, they should come down that fast because at the end of the day, we're all monthly payment people, right? We're all looking at this on the monthly. How much is it going to cost me on the monthly? And it just hasn't made it any significant change, right? That really is to note. So either way, I think it's a good thing that it's getting people talking about it and looking into it. Also opening up refinancing opportunities when we just see interest rates go down a little bit like that. Every single time you look at it, and I'm a case of that, I'm looking to refinance my home because I bought in 2023 and I got a 7.25% interest rate. I found a house that I liked. I figured, hey, I could stomach the payments for however long until I refinance, but I could probably get a 5.85 interest rate right now and save myself $300 a month. Not so bad, right? So that's probably something I should do tomorrow, honestly, before they start going back up. But I've got a million irons in the fire, and I'll look at that eventually. But I just had a friend of mine up in Philadelphia, just gave me a call. He's like, hey, I bought a house 7 months ago. My interest rate is 6.6%. They want me to refinance, and I'll save $200 a month. Should I do it? And I said, look into it. Give him a call. Talk to him about the numbers, right? So let's go on to the next news story here, guys. Don't want to harp on things too long. Why is it doing that? What the heck is going on? Tire screen. There we go. Okay. So, all right. Here we go. Yeah, it's showing my other tab, which doesn't make sense. So we're gonna change gears a little bit, or change carriages. St. Augustine debates horse-drawn carriages amid horse illness and animal rights outcry. So I'm sure they have the video listed on here somewhere. Maybe they don't, I don't know. But there was a viral video that came out on social media of one of the people who take care of the horses actually physically assaulting the horse. Now, how much damage can a human do to the horse? I didn't see the video, I don't know. Still not okay, right? Now, the horse-drawn carriages have been a point of contention, I would say, for a long time, right? Because you have animal activists are like, hey, you got these horses drawing people around in a carriage in the middle of summer, cars around them on a hot pavement. That's not okay, right? And then you have the other people who are like, animals live outside, and they have for a long time, and they've been workhorses for a long time. So regardless of your stance on pro or con for the health of the animal, my stance is horse-drawn carriages in a small European city with cars around it, bikes around it, people walking, and in already a congestion and traffic issue. They should have been gone a long time ago. Now, I know people love them. They add a certain character to the city, but go ahead and get stuck behind one when you need to go somewhere. It's awful. It sucks. And that's on top of, another complaint I have is the bridge going up every 30 minutes. The Lions Bridge going up every 30 minutes. A boat can wait. But the 50 cars in traffic, they can go. So every hour, I think the Lions Bridge should go up. So you throw 30-minute Lions Bridge, and you're behind a horse-drawn carriage, and the trolleys too. I'm coming after everyone down there. Trolleys, they're awful. And a lot of the times the drivers are just cutting in front of you because they know, they're like, hey, we run downtown St. Augustine. But at the end of the day, I think all of it's kind of a problem. Especially when we have a lot of issues with traffic in downtown St. Augustine, parking, all that kind of stuff. They literally set up the horses right on the main drag in the waterfront. So it's just not ideal. Can we still have them? Yeah, maybe let's have them off of have them off Marine Street down there, a little further south of the main drag, and they could still walk like a little bit of the waterfront and go through Lincolnville or something. But on the main drag, I'm not a fan of. What do you guys think of that? Let me know in the comments below. We got another news story coming for you. Oh, this pick it up here. This is also awesome, right? I interviewed St. Johns County Sheriff a couple years ago, Sheriff Hardwick. Very nice guy. And it seems that he's doing a really good job here in the county. Seems that a lot of people are happy with him. I'm happy with him. And I was glad to be able to have the opportunity to interview him. But St. Johns County notched this nearly unthinkable public safety milestone in 2025. So, home to more than 300,000 residents in one of Florida's fastest growing areas, recorded 0 criminal homicides in 2025. Out of, I think it says 100 counties, among the more than 100 U.S. counties with populations above 300,000, St. John's appears to be the only one to report 0 criminal killings last year. He goes on to contribute that to, the officers, the outreach programs that they put in place. And from my interview, it's a great one. It's long. If you want to check it out, it's on the page. I feel that he's doing a solid job, and he's up for re-election, right? So that's a pretty big feather in the cap that we haven't had one criminal murder this past year and no other U.S. county can say that. And people ask me all the time, like, do you think St. Augustine's safe? And I think that answers a good bit of that question. So let me know what you think in the comments below. We got 2 more news stories here, and that's it. The next couple are going to be pretty good. So let's do it. St. Augustine Airport Authority newest board member seeks stability and economic opportunity. So this is board member Daniel Bean. He's had many roles in Northeastern Florida: attorney, dad, CEO of K9s for Warriors, and a board member of Jack's Port. To start out 2026, Bean is taking on the additional task overseeing the St. Augustine Airport after Ron DeSantis appointed him to the Airport Authority on December 30th. His primary focus is laying the right foundation for the airport to reach its full potential after a year filled with legal investigations, resignations, and other challenges. So if you're not familiar, we have the Northeastern Florida Regional Airport here, just north of downtown St. Augustine. Northrop Grumman is also operated that, which is one of the largest private employers here in St. Johns County. And if you don't know, they make planes for the military. And we've had a tumultuous couple years with this airport. It originally, well, not originally, but just recently had commercial airlines flying into there. So I had a buddy that lived in Philly. He flew, I think it was on Frontier between Philly and St. Augustine. And his round trip ticket was like, I think 65 bucks or something like that. It was very cheap and affordable. And then COVID kind of put the kibosh on that. And then they were in a deal with Avelo, trying to get Avelo over there. And then they couldn't come to an agreement. Avelo went to Daytona. So obviously something's going on there, right? And there's been other lawsuits and mishandling of funds and all this kind of stuff. So there's been some problems, right? Definitely some problems there. But the one thing that St. Augustine has there is a runway that's actually larger than the runway at Jacksonville International Airport. So what Bean wants to do, Daniel Bean wants to do, is really encourage and help not only the airport for getting commercial flights back, but also to double down on what Northrop Grumman has already done there. So he wants to build more hangars there, and he wants it to make fiscal sense, of course, but he wants to build more hangars there because Trump has also doubled our military budget, which is kind of crazy because our military budget's already wild. So I imagine they're looking to like, hey, let's expand these manufacturing facilities here and give them the options so that we can expand facilities here. I think that's a great idea because Northrop Grumman has been in St. Augustine since I can remember. One of my best friend's mom was, and stepdad and his dad actually all worked there. So it's a tremendous employer here. Seems to be a really good add to St. Augustine. But also I think the biggest thing is like if we can get some commercial flights out of there, it'd be amazing. So let's go on to the next news story here, guys. Any questions about what I covered, let me know in the comments below. All right, so if you're not following St. Johns Citizen, you should. They're the best publication in St. Augustine and St. Johns County right now. They're just on it, man, and really big fans of what they're doing over there. But St. Johns County Citizen reports, master plan, these 3 St. Johns County developments were among the nation's top sellers in 2025. This was done by John Burns Research and Consulting. Hudson Company's SilverLeaf ranked 7th nationally with 1,002 homes sold. Mattamy Homes of Rivertown came in at 23 with 502 home sales. And Nocatee, of course, the crown jewel of St. Johns County, still made the list at 36 with 417 homes, despite being nearly built out. This was the ranking of 50 best-selling communities in the United States, which recorded nearly 33,000 new home sales in 2025. So, really interesting. I have a video coming out that really goes into this on Saturday, where you look. So, like, when you take a look at the map, I don't know what I clicked on there. You take a look at the map here of the top 50. So, top 10. You can see all the top 10 are in the southern area, right? You do top 50, and it really doesn't change too much. You're still seeing a lot. That didn't load. Okay, cool. There we go. You're seeing a lot of that in Florida, right? This is where a lot of the master plan communities are. And that's because we have the space, right? So you're seeing Texas, Florida, you see some in Arizona here, a couple out here in California. So I wonder what those are looking like. But a lot in Texas, a lot in Florida, because it gives you a certain lifestyle. So what they looked at were three essential things. The lifestyle, right, which I just said. High quality amenities, access to strong schools, enhanced security and or controlled access, mixed product offerings appealing to multiple life stages, and a built-in sense of community and belonging. Rivertown and Nocatee 100% have that. SilverLeaf it's coming. It's on the way for sure, and it's close to enough things where you probably could say that, but it's definitely on the way. Affordability pressure reshaping builder strategy. So we were just talking about the cost of a monthly mortgage, right? So what did builders focus on in order to keep buyers coming through the door? They focused on value engineering, so making their homes, and this may sound like this is a sales pitch, but they made them smaller so that the payments and the cost of building them would not be as high, right? Standardized buyer options, built smaller floor plans, no changes, introduced more affordable products, shifted to smaller lots. All of these things are happening in all of those communities. If you look at older homes in Nocatee versus newer homes, you have a lot smaller lot size. Inventory and incentives. This is where it gets really interesting, right? So Texas inventory homes, so this is new construction, got an average of 12.7% of of incentives. So closing costs, rate incentives, 12.7% of purchase price, whereas Florida had 10.4% of the purchase price contributed back. So most of these new construction communities that we're talking about we're talking about $500,000 houses. You know, most of them are between 4 and 600,000. We're talking on average $50,000 that's going back into the transaction through a rate buy down and through closing cost incentives, and that's what's kept these builders going. Now, the one difference I would say is that like I'd be really interested to see, like, based on competition, because in Rivertown you only really have Mattamy Homes and then you have Toll Brothers, and the Toll Brothers section is really in a completely different part of Rivertown, that it's its own little thing, right? So really Mattamy is the main builder there, so they don't have any competition. You go into Nocatee and really they only let like a handful of builders go in there. So you have like Providence Homes, you have ICI, you have David Weekley, I think Dosty's still building in there. There might be one more I'm missing. I'm missing another one, but either way, so they have more people. That my point is that they have more builders to compete with. So builders have to compete with other builders within the community. SilverLeaf has a ton of builders. I mean, they might have 10 builders in there now, all across different price points. And they also have like the biggest scale of project in there at the very beginning, whereas Rivertown and Nocatee are more or less towards the end. So they have a lot more availability of land within Rivertown or within SilverLeaf, so they can probably give a better deal. And they're also competing with a lot more people locally, right? Rivertown's like 15, 20 minutes from St. Augustine or from SilverLeaf. So the builders are all competing within each other, within the same community. So that's what we got going on this week, guys. That's my last news story for tonight. Pretty interesting, because that's a stark difference than what you're hearing on the news, is that, you know, oh, the market's cold, it's cooled off. When you look, and I'll show you this one other thing too, when you look at these neighborhoods, they're actually selling more houses, and that's probably because the market pricing has gone down, the incentives have gone up, right? So we look at SilverLeaf, which says it's in Jacksonville, which is not correct. They've sold 11% more houses than they did in 2024. Then we look at Rivertown, they sold 57% more houses than they did in 2024. So from 320 to 502. That's a huge jump. And then let's see, where's Nocatee? Nocatee was 37. Here we go. Nocatee actually sold less, minus 11%. And I think that's probably because at the end of the day, Nocatee is a tad bit more expensive. And also their availability of new construction is really only catered to a luxury buyer. So either way, really interesting statistics there. I like this kind of stuff. I hope you guys do too. I'm here for you. You're looking to buy, sell, or invest. It seems like this year, since it started, I worked all through the holidays, and that's just poor planning on my part, I would say. But going to Puerto Rico this weekend, so I'm going to enjoy the condo we have over there for a little bit. Hopefully get some sun. It's going to be cold here, so I'm glad to get out. So really excited about that. But it seems like the beginning of this year has been really busy so far. I've had a ton of people reaching out, and also, oddly enough, a ton of past clients and like their family members now reaching out, where it's like, hey, my mom's finally moving down. Can you help her out? Hey, my sister, hey, can you help my cousin? And I love that, which is great. But it just seems like it's all happening right now. So hopefully all this news and activity is a positive thing for our market this year. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think once again we're gonna have kind of more of a similar year to 2024. It's gonna be kind of flatlined. Maybe we see slight growth, but I don't think it's gonna be a tremendous change, like a lot of these doomers will say. We'll see though. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I'm seeing, I don't think so. But guys, I appreciate you being here. We had Lou, we had JJP904 commenting on here. Really appreciate the engagement, guys. Throwing me a like if you heard anything you liked today. Helps me out in the algorithm, spreads the news, gets this out to people. If you found some value, do me a solid. Catch you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. We'll go over the market stats, news you know about, think about buying, selling, or investing here in Northeastern Florida. And we also do a Q&A. So, till next week, guys. I'll see you.